Earlier this year, I began the 88th Armory with the idea of adding some variety to my, and maybe some viewers' arsenals by looking at weapon and Warframe builds that can work for the mid-game, where we play a lot of Warframe's experience and see what might make it into or close to the endgame. What I found in doing this was that I want to put everything on the table. Warframe is a game most often played in the mid-tier of its difficulty. This means facing enemies that are somewhere from 25 to 45 in level, give or take 5 levels. But what I found in attempting to point out in some of these weapons and builds that I enjoy in my mid-game play was that there are tons more to be had than even I thought. What we're looking for here is more variety, more fun in our Warframe experience. I still want to focus on more weapons, builds, and combinations for the mid-tier of the game where we often have a lot of our play, but I want to put all options on the table to find these elements of enjoyment through diversity, which is a lot of what Warframe has to offer. I'm Scott from Ramble Entertainment, and this is the new version of Season 1 of the 88th Armory. Let's find our fun, let's find our variety. So I've been wanting to do cheaper weapons, as some of the weapons from the season have been pretty expensive. I don't know if it gets any cheaper than the Akbronco Prime. Especially since, of course, the ribbons will be out soon for consoles, for pistols, and they're out for PC as well. Generally, I think the Akbronco are written off because if you just look at their blanket stats, they're pretty much low on ammo, not the best reload speed, a 2.0 reload speed, and then their stats just aren't really that impressive. But of course, if you think about them like the Ignis Prime, there won't be an Ignis Prime, or there shouldn't be, that'd be weird. It's a Grineer weapon. Like the Tigris Prime, if you look at them from the perspective of status and being a shotgun, that is what makes them truly interesting, because they achieve 100% status. So if you say, for instance, you're using an in-your-face Warframe like Atlas, who doesn't have to unequip and re-equip weapons with his abilities, this allows you to take advantage of their armor removing property through that 100% status, through a high pellet count, or just in general, if you're up close and personal, you can still just use them to kill. And I think that they are too easily overlooked and can really be a lot of fun. There are really two ways to approach them in my mind. I think that's my method, as you'll see in the build here shortly, because this will be a shorter video. Basically, the Akbronco, I think there's two routes to go with them without a ribbon. The routes are basically going with reload speed to up the consistency of the weapons, or to go with slash damage to up the consistency of the weapons. Basically, you're either going with more damage per shot but longer reload time, or you're going with faster reload time and just increasing the amount of damage you can put out in general over time. Now, before we actually get into the builds for these, or the build, because really it's one build and then you convert for the different elements, I want to note that as I have been, the 88th and Stay of the Frame Season 1 are coming to a close, which means there won't be any episodes for a couple months. Basically, this is my kind of break time. I haven't really taken weekends when I'm doing this hobby, basically, and so I don't really have too much downtime. So this is my way of having downtime, playing other games, refreshing myself, and taking a break from Warframe, because breaks are healthy. Beyond that, I think the other thing I just want to remind people of before we get into the build is that you don't have to unsubscribe if you see a lot of content coming through the channel that isn't Warframe content. I want to emphasize that because some people are here for Warframe content. That's completely fine. But the channel, as it's been before it started doing Warframe content, will continue to be more than just Warframe content. And I want to advise that if you go to the subscribe button, or technically the unsubscribe button if you're already subscribed, what you can do is you can click the bell and remove notifications until the Warframe content is back. And I think that's a happy medium between not losing subscribers and subscribers not being annoyed by other videos. So, with all of that in mind, let's go ahead and get into the builds. I don't know why I keep saying builds when I mean build. I'm used to talking about a weapon build or multiple weapon builds, or Warframe with a weapon build. But really, we're only here to talk about a single build that can be converted into multiple builds, where you convert your elements into different elements. But yeah, pretty simple build we have going on here, so nothing special. It's a no forma build. If you really want to add slash damage, you can add a single forma or replace lethal torrent. Lethal torrent isn't entirely necessary, but we'll get to that in just a moment. The real big standout here is also quick draw. You can replace quick draw, add a forma. Jeez. And there you have your... Why did I lose it? And that's where you can put your slash damage. You can put maim. And I am so out of it today. Anyway, so yeah, nothing incredibly special here, but I do want to start to highlight, and I'll really highlight this more with the next video, our choices, the choices we make for where we're putting our ribbon. And this will become really salient in the next video. Basically, I think there are 2 locations, or potential 3 locations to put your ribbon, and we'll really dive into that in the last portion of the video. But for me, I'm probably going to put it where maim is right now, or where lethal torrent is about to go. And then the other choice will be quick draw. I'm either going to swap out quick draw for a ribbon that potentially has a reload speed, or if I don't get reload speed and I really want to keep that consistency going, I'm probably going to swap out lethal torrent. I think that too many look at lethal torrent as a must-have for secondaries, but often lethal torrent can actually make secondaries ammo inefficient. You look at this with like the Axamati, a bunch of ammo inefficient weapons that I can't think of off the top of my head, but yeah, if you're finding that you're running out of ammo too fast and that you're sacrificing 2 mod slots for lethal torrent and an ammo capacity mod or an ammo efficiency mod, then the answer is actually to try and take both of those away and add damage else through another means. I think that 60 multi-shot and 60% fire rate isn't always good, especially on like the Akbronco Prime. The 60% fire rate really isn't that necessary. The multi-shot, of course, helps, but this can be given to us through a ribbon. Of course, so can reload speed. So these seem to be the 2 obvious choices. One of the other choices we'll get to is potentially having more status chance. So if we have more status chance, this gives us the opportunity to replace a status mod and add more damage there as well. So like you can replace Jolt, and if it's enough status chance through a single mod, you can replace Scorch as well, allowing you to add more damage. With all of that in mind, let's go ahead and really get into the final segments, because there isn't much more to it than this. So with all of these things in mind, of course the Akbronco is still a weapon that comes up fairly short, but I think it's one of these weapons that's simply easily overlooked, easily looked at as mastery fodder because it's old. There isn't much behind it, but when you actually do get that status going, it can be a fun weapon that adds variety to your arsenal, and of course that is always what we're shooting for. Why does that look so crooked? Nothing we can do about that. Anyway, so yeah, I really like the Akbronco, but of course they are short on ammo, which means you do have this constant reload going on. Of course, this can help with the arcane. What is that? Which arcane is that? Is that... let's go ahead and pull up the arcanes on the fly. I don't know those off the top of my head. Myself and my clan have been farming some arcanes within the past year since they plan to trivialize the distillers. However, even once you actually have arcanes that can finally start to move between Sayandanas and helmets, they're still not, for a raid, they still kind of come up short. For a high-level instance of the game, I feel like they come up a bit short, so that actually didn't pull him up, but I'm sure someone out there is actually screaming at their monitor right now. Arcanes. Huh. Why am I not seeing it? Why isn't it not? There it is. So it is... I know this one. Is it Awakening? Yep, it's Awakening. Basically, on reload, it gives your secondaries improved damage. It's not a huge percentage, but 60% is still 60%, especially when you have a high damage secondary like the Akbronco. So if you have an Arcane Awakening, this weapon is also advantageous to that as well, especially if you choose to go with the reload speed. Nonetheless, comparatively to like newer weapons like the Twin Rogos, I believe that's their name. I'm really out of it today. Let's look that one up too. Yeah, the Twin Roga, they have a lot higher damage. Not high in status, not incredibly high in crit, but still probably a bit more damage dealing. Nonetheless, still a thing of variety. Did I just teabag that guy? Anyway, so basically, outside of all of this, this is kind of one of those what you see is what you get weapons. Fun to be had in exterminates and some low levels, not low level, mid-level to mid-high, or the lower tier of the high level kind of enemies, so like your level 50 enemies. Maybe you can push it up to like level 70 enemies, especially if you have corrosive on to rip off armor. But outside of that, yeah, it really just depends on an arcane roll that you'll be getting, how high you take them. But even then, they are still limited in range. I don't think range is a secondary Riven perk, but since we're doing all this on the fly, let's go ahead and take a look anyway before we actually get into the final footage and get into our Riven rambling. So, not reload speed, we're looking for attack range. It's either under R or potentially doesn't look like it. So, with all of that in mind, I think it's time to look at the final footage for this video, and then we'll talk about that Riven Dream more in depth. Enjoy!
Security override incoming. Moving control now, suckers. Security override engaged.
Alarms have been reset.
So, with the footage wrapping up here, it'll end up repeating. Of course, that is the consequence of going with an exterminate for the final footage. And that'll be more work in post, but it is what it is, and the Akbronco are what they are. But nonetheless, I think that when it comes to a potential Riven for these weapons when I get back from my break-in, I think this would be a weapon I actually would love to see, to have a Riven pop for. Personally, I think the answer is pretty straightforward. Things like multi-shot, things like damage and status, reload speed, ammo in the clip, or just maximum ammo in general. Basically, with all of these different elements, your status and your multi-shot would help with just improving status. So what you could do is, if you get those, you can take away the status mods and add more damage, so long as you're holding at that 100% status chance. Basically, what this allows for is then, instead of the 60% that the damage of the status mod adds, instead you can add 90%. And so I would recommend going with the corrosive and the viral for those. because those are really the effective mods in achieving TTK through status. Time to kill through status. Corrosive removes armor, and viral reduces the amount of health. So outside of all of that, then you could also just go a pure damage route where you don't even really aim for status, or you can aim for status, and the Riven mod simply adds like 200% more damage. Cool. And then you can do things like make up for reload speed. You can add slash, so like if you get reload speed and slash, as well as say some other damage, then these actually do become a slash shotgun secondary. And outside of all of that, I really think that that's all the weapon comes down to, is just grabbing some extra of what it does. It's not a Convectrix where it's this jack of all needs, so whatever you get for it, it's gonna be pretty damn good helping it out. Instead, this is gonna be one of those focus on the damage, focus on the status, maybe some reload speed, that's about it. And that's really what it all comes down to. But at the same time, again, these add some fun variety to my own personal arsenal, and I hope maybe this video can make you rethink selling that Riven mod, or rethink the Akbronco, or even the Bronco in general, because a lot of what is said here kind of even applies to the Bronco, the Bronco Prime in general. So let's go ahead and get into the next episode recording. So I hope you guys enjoyed what we had to do here. If you do the thing, and we'll see you in the next video.